Hello everyone, my name is Lisa Mumbin. I am the chairperson of Jawoyn Association. Jawoyn Association was formed in 1985 and it was for the interest of the people. I've been elected back in 1997 and but being involved with the organisation, with the land rights since it started, I decided to form a women's group focused on family and how best we could, take the well-being part in our own lives and help others in their life to have that healthy healing in place, given what had really impacted on our life, since the white men actually came into our country. Being the chairperson of, there was Banatjarl, a piece of land that was sitting, doing nothing, that we bought back through ILC. Forming this women group, we had to, fight for funding. Banatjarl has always been a healing place, as I've kind of known from a lot of the elders have talked about that country. People getting out there on the weekend and just having that family time. Going through that healing from that spiritual and physical and mental perspective, producing bush medicine, our traditional medicine, and bush food. And they've been out there planting. We've been out at Banatjarl and put together a garden, a shed, and managed to use that house where the elders can work on making this bush medicine. I wanted to give that Banatjarl Women's Group a full support. So I've talked to the committee, the board, and requested for some funding to really give that group a push again and make them become, strong again as women that plays an active role in our family lives, learning our young ones to take that tradition back on again, instead of, living full forward on that Western life. We step into that role, but also being that role model to our younger generation that's coming up. They found that they have something there that they can have for their future and their children's future. Get requests from government agencies, that we want to, run healing camps there for our young kids. So, Banatjarl now, it's now put in its position to actually help people, out there. In 2020, there's been another big impact on us, and it was the coronavirus now, and yes, we had to be isolated. We had to respect the law, the authority, and it's been a very, very huge impact on us. At this stage, we're just doing little things by little things each day. And there's been great fear put in every one of us. And Aboriginal organisation like Jawoyn and our health service and our, land council, which holds a very big status across the Northern Territory and wider, being just out there, putting messages out to just take care, and that we are all on this together. And let's kind of just hold each other in spirit. Country is having a break, and it gives me a smile when I say that, because when I'm on country, I can feel the country is alive. Coronavirus, COVID-19 have given us something great. And when I mean that is that we got our country, we've got our traditional food, we've got our traditional medicine. It's all there, just on that open door waiting for us. And maybe this time has given us a break to be able to go out through that door in our open country to live and breathe. So I encourage each other to be strong and for who we are as women of the world.
Hello, my name is Leonie Sanderson. I'm 53 years old. I'm from North Queensland and I identify with she, her pronouns. I'm also the co-founder of the Ageing Revolution. The Ageing Revolution aims to challenge ageism wherever we find it and to make a difference to the lives of older people, their friends and families. One of the first things we did when we started the Ageing Revolution was go on a road trip. We wanted to hear from Australians about what it was like to age in Australia, what it was like to grow older, what were their experiences, what were the challenges, and how do we experience ageing as women? We already know that the population is ageing, not just in Australia, but globally. But ageing is also gendered. Women are more likely to live longer than men. They're more likely to live alone as they grow older. They have less housing security, less financial security, and less superannuation. All of these things definitely impact on women as they age. On our road trip, I was curious to understand how ageing affects our way of life. How do women experience ageing? What are the challenges? What are the ups and downs that come with growing older as women? I was surprised by some of the things that I learnt. Women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s all experienced different hurdles as they grew older. One of the big things we heard from women was that ageing made them feel less valuable, that ageing made them feel invisible, that ageing made them feel as if they didn't matter, as if they didn't have a voice, they had nothing left to contribute. Now, I wasn't surprised to hear that women were subject to ageism. I'd been hearing from friends who were turning 40 and 50 that they felt invisible a lot. It was common that once you turned 40 or 50, you had to walk out of the way on the street because other people would walk into you, that you would get ignored in stores. You'd have to wave and shout to get seen. I'd heard these stories quite commonly, so that wasn't a surprise for me. But what did surprise me was how much older women had internalised that ageism towards themselves, how much they'd taken on some of those stereotypes that we hear about growing older. I was lucky enough to grow up in a house surrounded by strong women, including my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother lived till she was 94, and she was an amazing influence on me. She really taught me that ageing wasn't something to be afraid of, that it was an opportunity to embrace the best of life, that ageing was something that happened to everybody, that we should be looking forward to how we step into that experience and wisdom. Yet we continue to fear ageing. We continue to try and hold it at bay. These myths and stereotypes really contribute to a negative view of ageing for women. When I thought about the challenges that women said they faced with growing older, finding employment as an older woman, finding clothes for women our age, caring for younger family members as well as older family members and all the challenges that come with that, finding doctors that understand menopause and women's health as they grow older, being talked to as if you're 5 years old by customer service representatives, or worse still, being ignored completely. It occurred to me that these challenges, these problems, could be seen from two different perspectives. The system and the impact that ageing has on the systems that surround us, and individuals and the way that ageism affects our experiences in the world. The road trip laid the foundation to start working on some of these challenges. On the system side of things, over the last couple of years, we've worked hard to challenge ageism. We've worked with governments, we've worked with advocacy organisations, we've worked with universities, we've worked in co-design, we've looked at age-friendly communities, we've looked at how we can design for better ageing as we all grow older. Recently, we've kicked off 2 new projects to make sure the voice of older people and older women is heard loud and clear. We're using virtual reality to create empathy experiences from the perspective of older women. Virtual reality, or VR, lets you walk in someone else's shoes. It lets you experience life the way they experience life. You get to see a different perspective. Our VR will show people what it's like to experience ageism as an older woman. Our experiences will show what it's like to be ignored or feel invisible. We're also working on a community-led photo library of realistic and diverse images that show that ageing isn't all just wrinkled hands and couples running on the beach wearing pastel sweaters. We want to show that ageing is diverse and beautiful in all its forms. When we talk about older people, we're really talking about ourselves. We're all either older people or future older people. Ageing affects every single one of us. For our projects to work, we need older women to get involved. Particularly now, as COVID-19 is affecting our lives dramatically, we need to challenge ageism even more. Ageism affects our health, it affects the way we're treated, it affects almost every aspect of our lives. We need to step up and challenge this and shift the way that systems operate so that women around the world are not devalued by growing older. We want to create an age justice movement that shows the world that older women are valuable and that their wisdom and experience is something we should be cherishing. If you want to help challenge stereotypes of ageing and women, if you want to get involved in creating an age justice movement, then I would love to hear from you and help share your story.
I identify myself as an active filmmaker, an empowered woman, an avid traveler. These are the things that I see myself for. But how do other people see me when they first meet me? Disabled. Well, growing up, I felt like I was just one of the kids. I went to my local primary school. I had great friends there. I had a loving, supportive family. I, for a few years, took piano lessons and even for a while became a girl guide. I never connected with the idea that I was disabled. I didn't see that in myself. I didn't feel that way. I was doing the things that all of my friends were doing. It just wasn't part of what I considered my identity to be. However, when I was 10 months old, I was diagnosed with a condition called Still's disease. This is more commonly known as juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Yes, arthritis, not something you picture a 10-month-old baby as having. For me, the arthritis was systemic, meaning that it affected pretty much all of my joints. So that meant that I did have some obvious physical differences as I grew up. But before you throw any sympathy my way or say, oh, no, I'm not living every day in pain. I do get stiff at times, but I like to think of the arthritis as having burned its way through my body, leaving the damage to my joints, but eventually, in fact, leaving my body. However, because of my physical differences, people see me first and foremost as disabled. Why? Because of the way that people with disabilities have been portrayed in film, TV shows, any kind of mainstream media for decades. People that have been portrayed as having a disability are often seen as sad individuals, people to be pitied. They quite often serve as inspiration for the able-bodied people around them. Growing up, I never saw someone on screen that I could relate to or that I connected with. If I did see people with disabilities and it was those aforementioned portrayals, that wasn't my experience as having a disability. I didn't have a sad life. I had a great life. I still do. I love my life. I love the people in it, and I love what I'm doing with my life. By not seeing someone on screen that reflected this experience, it often would leave me feeling, I guess, alienated, isolated, even if I didn't realize it at the time. If I did see someone and it was a sad experience, this is what fueled the way society sees people with disabilities, hence how society sees me. This is the reason that I distanced myself as much as I could from the disability community. I happened to go to primary and high schools locally that had a special education unit, but I, as much as I could, distanced myself from that, never wanting to be seen as part of that world or be associated with it. I guess I never wanted to be seen as a disabled person because I didn't see myself that way. I didn't see myself the way society sees or considers who people with disability are. I felt like I wanted to hide that part of myself. I didn't want to do things differently in front of other people. I felt like it was something to be somewhat ashamed of. And I feel this did a disservice to me growing up, in a way. Instead of embracing my differences, I hid them best I could, to the point where some of my closest friends probably don't know how I do certain things because I don't like sharing that part of my life with them. I don't embrace how I live my life differently. Why did I try so hard to fit in? Because I didn't see anything different on screen. There was no one out there saying that it's okay that you do things differently, that everyone does things differently. I saw one way of doing things, and that is the most common way because that's what was always reflected on screen. However, things are beginning to change quite dramatically, particularly I would say in the last 5 to maybe 10 years. Suddenly, diversity and inclusion are key objectives for any sort of film, TV, media, artistic works. Suddenly, people are begging to see diversity and differences on our screens. People are sick of seeing the same thing over and over and over. They want to see themselves reflected on screen because that's the world we live in. We live in a diverse, multicultural, rich, exciting world, and that is what we want to see on screen. It's not just what we see on our mainstream screens in mass media, but the other thing that has changed for people as well is having access to social media. I know for me, for the first time in my life, I'm connecting with people and seeing people living with disabilities that I actually relate to and connect with. It's like they've been hiding in the shadows my whole life, and social media has brought them out of the woodwork, and suddenly I see that, oh, I'm not actually the only one to face the challenges that I've faced or do the things that I've done despite, my physical challenges. Other people are doing it as well, and it's exciting. I found YouTube vloggers like Squirmy and Grubs, an interabled couple living their best life, clearly. Beauty blogger Tess Daly. I found an accessible travel group on Facebook, which has not only fueled my wanderlust, but expanded on it because I'm seeing people with disabilities similar to my own, maybe perhaps even more severe than my own, and they're traveling to places that I never thought would be accessible. It's basically opening up my mind to new possibilities, new opportunities, and that is really exciting. Not only am I benefiting from seeing such progressive works and connecting with such colorful individuals on social media, but I'm hoping to reflect and highlight such individuals through my own work as a filmmaker. I run my own production company, Dour Productions, and our key message for that business is embracing diversity and inclusion, not only in front of the screen, but behind the scenes as well. The more diverse experience and unique voices you have behind the scenes, the more authentic portrayals will be on our screens in the content that we produce. And that means a richer product that we're putting out into the world. As a filmmaker, I want to not only have an impact on people with disabilities when they watch my content, I want to have an impact on their friends and family. Take, for example, parents of children with disabilities. If they can see the people in my own content feeling empowered and doing awesome, amazing things with their lives, then it gives them not just hope, but it can make them excited for their children's future. I also hope that the content that I produce really, impacts the way society sees people with disabilities and tries to adjust or amend the damaging portrayals that have fueled society's views for way too long. The more that they see people with disabilities out there living their best lives, doing amazing things, or you know what, just living ordinary lives for once, the more that that's going to become normalized and hopefully start to remove some of those damaging stigmas that have been attached to disability for so long. The things that I've struggled with my whole life. I think the more that we all embrace diversity and inclusion within our own lives, clearly the richer they all become. So, yeah.
I wish you could see and touch this giant sculpture. Right now it's stored in here. It's wrapped carefully and stored where it will be dry and dust-free. And it's scented with essential oils to stave off the return of the smells of human habitation, the sweat, the body oils, the stress, the pheromones, and whatever other human residue arises from 900 t-shirts recycled from landfill. Hi, I'm Baek Van Dyke, the artist who envisaged this giant placenta sculpture. I didn't create the work alone. I had many women who believed in the importance of the work and they joined their fibre skills with mine. Where's your placenta or placentas right now? Many people do have stories to tell, but perhaps most, including me, don't know where our placentas that were created from our body's nutrients even ended up. In some ways, this doesn't really matter because instead of the bodily mass of the pregnancy, we now have the babies or the grown children, and these are now the product of our body's investment. So this is a current oil on canvas work it's a work in progress, and it's of my 2 kids, my daughter Zoe and my son Ripley. So perhaps even further back, where's the placenta that grew alongside you in your earliest days of growth? Perhaps that doesn't matter either. Our mothers, if they're still with us, they were able to hold us, even if it was only for a short time. And this is a photo of my mum, who birthed 6 babies and 6 placentas, and she was able to visit the Geelong Library where the sculpture was for a time. So our placentas have gone, and in most cases they're forgotten unless someone asks us the story of our birth. But they were invaluable and they were costly for our bodies. So what's the value of our body's investment into the next generation of humans? With the medicalisation of birth, itself an important scientific triumph, there's been a reduction in the ritualistic acknowledgement of our mortality in birthing. Philosophically, culturally, historically, birthing's considered to be a liminal place, somewhere on a knife edge between life and death and new life. And risk is now counted and estimated, insured against. And in that human accounting, the heart of the matter's kind of dissolved. Birth has become a litany of measurement and paperwork, and the emotional content is avoided and left to the family what there is of it. Similarly, there's an invisibility of the work of mothers and women's bodies as they contribute emotional and physical nurture, both to the next generation and to their workplaces or social circles, and the ongoing welfare of the family unit. Women work to contribute, whether they're biological mothers or not, to the emotional and physical well-being of the social units they move in. They invest physical and emotional energy into the smooth and comfortable workings of society. They're doing the heavy lifting of human nurture. The inspiration and drive to create this artwork came during participating and watching the repetition of the school drop-off. All these women, each with their own complicated lives, giving love, giving nurture, showing care, showing earnest commitment even on the days when they were exasperated, when they're exhausted, unorganised even. There was such a wealth of women's work, but completely unsung and uncelebrated. Mothers contribute a mammoth effort to enable society to continue, and often they're doing it alone. So how do you commemorate this goddess of monumental effort? How do you symbolize the mother and build a monument to them? I chose the placenta. The human placenta requires a daily monumental contribution of blood, whose ingredients are physiologically tailor-made for each developmental stage of the growing human. The human uterus also requires a monthly blood contribution, a donation essentially, to ensure the possibility that human life can be sustained. It's around 35 litres of blood over a lifetime of menstruation. In many ways, the blood and the placenta that was fed by it are disgusting. Our society prefers not to see or think about these things, if at all possible. This emotional response is understandable because blood is the thing that we as humans are most careful to avoid, and the disgust response creates a social withdrawal that protects the group from a threat of disease. So in choosing the human placenta as my artwork, I chose a thing that's not in everyday language or thought, far from it in fact. The sculpture's been refused entry for display in a number of locations, women's hospitals, women's organisations, because of the social discomfort related to women's business. But I think this is the power of art. It can take a thing that's uncomfortable to think or talk about and cast it in a different light. If you could see and touch this giant, soft, red and purple sculpture, you would feel only softness, interesting textures, vibrant colours, and the remnants of humanity rendered benign by washing, dyeing, and knitting by human hands. Perhaps you might think for a few moments on the energy expended by mothers, perhaps your own mother, perhaps other mothers you've known, perhaps yourself as a mother. You'd realise the reality of those mothers, perhaps their strengths, their flaws. You might even think for a while about your feelings toward them. Love, hate, perplexity, disappointment, sadness, mourning, intense joy, vivid memories. This would be my goal as the artist, to evoke these thoughts, even if only for a short while. The creation took over 2 years, which is around about the same gestational period as an elephant. How do you knit an elephant? Well, around 50 stitches at a time, using 28mm needles and the equivalent of 50 ply yarn. And to give you an idea of what one t-shirt or one recycled t-shirt contributes, this is a knitted swatch of one recycled t-shirt that's been dyed, cut into yarn, and then knitted. The sculpture has an internal steel structure and is completely assembled and dismantled at every location. The giant placentas toured 6 locations, including Melbourne, Sydney, and Canberra. The construction and tour has been completely self-funded, with some small financial donations along the way and significant donations of time and energy by many friends. I would love for this work to have a permanent home where it can be a reminder of the donation of women's blood and their energy to our ongoing species survival.